I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser. Every branch of mine that does not bear fruit he takes away, and every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, that it may bear more fruit. Already you are clean because of the word that I have spoken to you. Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing.
Well, good morning. It's great to see everyone. I'm Matt Sturdevant, the lead pastor here, and as Brian mentioned, we're continuing our series, Abide Today, and we've been looking at this passage from John chapter 15, where Jesus gives us the imagery of the vine and the branches, and he talks about how he is the vine and we're the branches. And if we abide, which means to stay or to remain, and we're connected to him, then that's when we can grow. That's when we can bear fruit. That's when we can have the life and the meaning and the purpose that really we're all searching for. Now, last week, one of the things I did, if you were here, I pruned. Because a little bit further in the passage, not what you just saw, but a little further, it talks more about pruning. And, well, we have a nice, healthy vine, but this branch, I don't know, can you guys see it? Does this look very healthy? It's been disconnected for just a week. Just a week it's been disconnected, and it's starting to wither. And it's kind of crunchy, actually. So by the time we get to next week and wrapping up the series, we'll see what ultimately happens in just 3 weeks to a branch that is disconnected to the vine. So I'm going to put this back down here, and we'll check in on it next week to see what happens when we're not connected to the vine. Now, if you're just joining us this week, that's great. I'm going to do a very quick recap on what we talked about last week, and you've got it there at the top of your notes. So, abiding in Jesus means we need to grow in 3 areas. You can see these 3 areas here. One, there's knowledge. There's just stuff we need to know. And that's what we focused our time on last week. We talked about the big categories of the stuff we need to know. Well, in addition to knowledge, there's character. If we're abiding in Jesus, we're going to be growing in character. And character really is the process of becoming a specific kind of a person. Not just any person, a specific kind of a person. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. And then there's skill. We've got to have the ability to do Jesus' mission. So we have this knowledge, character, and skill. And last week I introduced you to this graphic here where we can think about it in terms of our head, our heart, and our hands. There's stuff we got to know that has to do with our head. And then there's this person that we're becoming. It has to do with our heart. Now again, in the Bible, anytime we see it talking about the heart, it's not talking about the muscle in our chest that's delivering blood throughout our body. It's talking about the real us on the inside. So as knowledge comes in, really it's to come in to change our heart for us to become a specific kind of a person. And then that leads ultimately to our hands. That leads us to doing some things. And that's where we're going to wind up next week as we wrap up the series. Also, we looked at Matthew 4:19 as we tried to define what does it mean to be a disciple of Jesus. So in Matthew 4:19, Jesus says to them, "Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men." So that verse is printed out in your notes. Go ahead and circle the "I will make you" part in your notes, because that's about the character process that we're going to be talking about today. Now, the working definition that we have for a disciple then, because sometimes we wonder, well, what do we mean when we talk about a disciple? What is a disciple? Well, this is what a disciple is. Someone who is following Jesus, being changed by Jesus, and is committed to the mission of Jesus. If you've decided to follow Jesus, if you are his disciple, this describes you. You're following him, you're being changed by him, and you're committed to his mission. Now, I want to show you another image that we created this week. If you've been around Hope for a while, you have seen something like this, but I want to kind of pull it together as we think about the vine and the branches. So this is what the path of spiritual growth looks like. So we start out our life spiritually dead. When we're physically born into this world, because of sin, we are spiritually dead. And then the moment that we decide to follow Jesus, then we become a newborn spiritually. We begin this new life in Jesus. And then what's supposed to happen over time, just like a real human baby, they move from a newborn to a baby to a child to an adult, and then some adults turn into parents. Well, that is the path that we take spiritually as well. When we decide to follow Jesus, all we really know is that we've decided to follow Jesus, right? Then we spend the rest of our life on this planet learning and growing more and more. What does it mean to follow Jesus? And as we grow, you can see that there's just a couple of leaves right here for this newborn, but then the branches are getting thicker as time grows, and there's fruit that can be on the vine as we get further down. And then a parent, what does a parent do? A parent takes care of themselves, right? But then parents help take care of newborns and babies. So these are actually ones who are more spiritually mature, who are helping those that are younger spiritually. All right, so this is just kind of gives us an understanding of this pathway that we take. But I want to focus right here for just a minute. This moment where we move from being spiritually dead to deciding to follow Jesus in this new life, you could also kind of think of it like entering into a new country. If we're followers of Jesus, we are citizens of the kingdom. We're living here on this planet in this world, but we are no longer of this world. And the mindset changes, and the differences are like being in a new country. Now, if you've ever grown up in another country and moved to a different country, you understand there's different customs, there's different ways, and you have to learn them and grow in them. So I wanted you to get to hear from Tanya Karyagina. She was playing the keyboard here earlier. She did not grow up in the U.S., and I want you to hear a little bit about her story in moving to the U.S. and what it was like to be living now in a different country.
Меня зовут Таня Карягина. Я переехала из Алматы, Казахстана, в Америку в 1997 году. My first experience was, the analogy would be as if you're going from black and white film to colors. And so there were a lot of colorful things in the United States, and on the streets and in the stores, there was a lot more variety. So I was amazed by how many of different kinds of things there were in a store going in there, and that you actually could choose, because growing up during the Soviet Union, I could not really, we didn't have a choice. We had one or two kinds of something, and that was it. And another thing was people were busy, and I felt at first pretty isolated and didn't feel like there was enough of community, that everybody was on the go, hurrying and rushing somewhere. And it took me a while to figure out that you actually have to call somebody to schedule time to meet with them. You could not just go up to their house and invite yourself over. So that was different, obviously. I think the first year that I was here was the most challenging one, because I didn't know the language very well. I didn't know my way around. Didn't have that many friends. And so adjusting took about a year. And then after a year, I learned language a little bit better, got some friends, was able to get around a little bit better. So I would say about a year. And then, I'm still learning things. So it's not like it ends.
So you hear some of the differences. Like moving to a new country. That's a lot what it's like for us when we move from the kingdom of this world to God's kingdom when we decide to follow Jesus. She talked about having new choices to make. She talked about the need for community. She talked about how she had to figure out some of the ways and customs. And then I loved how she ended it. She said, I'm still working on it, right? And that's the way it is for us. It doesn't matter how long you've been a follower of Jesus. You're still working on it. In fact, maybe you've felt some of the tension before. This tension of living in this world, but this world not being your home, and we're constantly kind of living in two worlds, and there's just some stress and some tension. And I want to look at this statement. I'm going to walk through this, and I want you to see if you can relate to this, if you ever felt any of these. Let's go to that quote there. It says, "The spiritual life becomes a continuous series of daily responses to the Lord's prompting in our lives. In each case, we will choose to walk by sight or by faith, by law or by grace, by the flesh or by the Spirit, by our will or God's will, by submission or resistance, by dependence or autonomy, by worldly wisdom or divine wisdom, by betting everything on God's promises and character, or by trying to control our world on our own terms, by the temporal or the eternal, by trying to find our lives or by losing them for Christ's sake." Anybody ever felt some of those tensions where you're having to choose to walk by one way or the other on a daily basis? So what I want to do for the rest of our time is I want to talk about focusing on the kind of person that we are to be becoming. And as we do that, I want to talk about the goal, I want to talk about the means, and then I want to talk about the fruit. So the goal of discipleship is transformation. We are being changed and transformed into a new person. We have a new life in Christ, therefore we've got to learn what does it mean to be changed into a new person. I want to look at Romans 12:2 with you in the Amplified Bible. And the Amplified Bible, you're going to see there's going to be a lot of brackets and parentheses, and it helps expand so we can really understand some of the meaning behind the words. So it says, "And do not be conformed to this world any longer with its superficial values and customs, but be transformed and progressively changed as you mature spiritually by the renewing of your mind, focusing on godly values and ethical attitudes, so that you may prove for yourselves what the will of God is, that which is good and acceptable and perfect in His plan and purpose for you." So you see this transformation, that's the whole goal of discipleship. If we are a disciple of Jesus, then we need to be in the process of being transformed. In fact, 2 Corinthians 5:17 talks about this. It says, "This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone and a new life has begun." So this old life that we had before Jesus, it's gone, and we've got a new life. But just like someone moving to a new country who has to understand the customs and the ways, well, we've got to be transformed. And I don't know about you, but I've traveled internationally quite a fair amount, but never for more than about 3 weeks. And especially if you're just going for a short amount of time, like, you need to understand the customs that can get you in trouble, but then you don't have to really pay attention to the rest. Why? Because I'm not staying here. But if you're moving to a new country, then you're going to be there, and you really have to know the ways and the customs, and you've got to be transformed. So as a disciple, I need to increasingly be present. I need to be present. Did you know that the past is gone? The past is in the past. And the future is not guaranteed. So the past is gone and the future is not guaranteed. All we have is this present moment. And God meets us in this present moment, and the choices that we make in this present moment have an impact on the future. So let's go back to this image that we looked at earlier. All we have, wherever we're at, is this present moment. But the choices that we make will have an impact on how we move forward. In fact, I think it's interesting that sort of in Christianity in general, okay, there's kind of this acceptable thing that you can be a Christian for 20 years but still be a newborn or still be a baby. For those of you who have been in your career for 20 years, Would you still be in your career 20 years later if you had the same amount of knowledge and skill that you had when you started out? Probably not, right? So we need to be growing. We need to be becoming this new person with this new life in Christ. But we've got to be present in the moment for God to do the things that He wants to do in our lives in this moment. We can't change the past, and we don't have the future guaranteed. We only have right now. Now, a couple of years ago, I came across some images that were pretty sobering to me, and I want to share them with you. What in the world are these guys doing? They're sort of staring at their hands while they stand next to each other. Let's go to the next one. This couple's, man, it looks like a nice cabin. There's probably a lake or something out here that we can't see, and they're sitting there snuggled up, but staring at their hands again. And then this last one, there's a family here. Well, if you've seen these images before, you know what they did was they digitally removed the electronic devices. So in this hand, Dad's probably got a phone, Mom's got a phone, and he's probably got some iPads here. Now, I'm not against technology. We just launched our Hope Church app, right? I'm not saying technology is the problem. We're the problem. We need to be present. We need to be present in the moment with the people that God has us with. Be present in the moment with what God wants to do in our lives right now. We can't change the past, and don't worry about the future. We've got to be present right now. We've also got to be on guard. We've got to be on guard against sin and temptation. Proverbs 4:23. It says, "Guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life." What's the message that this world is telling us constantly? Follow your heart, right? Follow your heart. Well, last week we looked at Jeremiah 17:9. Here's what God says about our heart through the prophet. He says, "The heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it?" Do you think we're going to wind up where we want to wind up if we're following a sick person? If we just follow our sick heart? No. The world says follow your heart, but God says guard your heart. Here's what Peter said about needing to guard. He says, "Stay alert, watch out for your great enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour." One of the things we talked about last week was one of the things we need to know is that we live in a physical and spiritual world. There is an unseen spiritual realm that's just as real as the physical realm. And I think that for us as Westerners and as Americans, most of the time when we read this verse, this is what we have in our mind when we hear about that lion. I mean, it's just a little lion cub that's, I mean, is he yawning or is he growling, right? And if he was to latch onto my leg, I'd just kick him off. We don't need to be on guard against that. Here's the image that I want you to have in your mind. Little different, right? We need to be on guard because he prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. I think that lion could devour me if it wanted to. Here's a statement I want you to think about for just a moment. We deceive ourselves by the smallness of our surrenders. We deceive ourselves by the smallness of our surrenders. Have you ever seen someone do something and you think, why in the world? How could they do that? Maybe it's this awful, horrible thing, and whatever a 10 is for you, that was the 10. Most of the time, we don't start with the 10. Before the 10 was the 9. Before the 9 was the 8. Before the 8 was the 7. And the 6, and the 5, and the 4, the 3, the 2. And there's that small surrender. But over time, we get to the 10. Now, those of you who know me know that I love memes, and I found this meme. It was called The 4 Stages of Sin, and I've broken it into frame by frame for you, and I think this illustrates it. So here's this dog, and when it comes to sin, that looks interesting. That's step 1, right? Something looks interesting to us. Here's stage 2. It can't be that bad. Stage 3, this is worse than I had anticipated. And then stage 4, help me, Jesus. Now we laugh. You don't have to raise your hand. But how many of us have lived this? We deceive ourselves with the smallness of the surrender. That's why we've got to be on guard. So I need to be increasingly present. I need to be increasingly on guard. And then I need to become more like Jesus in character. To transform as a disciple, I need to become more like Jesus in character. And character is really, it's our value structure, our ranking of priorities that's been hardened and set like concrete over time as we've made decisions and we've gone about in our life. Character growth, it involves our thoughts, it involves our words, it involves our actions. So if we're going to become more like Jesus in character, what does that mean? That means we need to be thinking more like Jesus. We need to be speaking more like Jesus would speak. We need to be doing the things that he would do, or at least not doing the things that he doesn't approve of, right? Now, we could pick any number of verses from the New Testament to get a flavor for what is the character of Jesus. But I've selected Philippians 2. We're going to look at this passage. We're going to see some of the character qualities of Jesus that we need to become more and more like. It says, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. So as followers of Jesus, as we relate to one another, this is the mindset that we need to have. Who being in the very nature of God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant. Being made in human likeness and being found in the appearance as a man, he humbled himself by becoming obedient to death, even death on a cross. A few weeks ago, we talked about the kind of death Jesus died on the cross and how at that time in history, it was the worst, most awful, shameful way that someone could die. And he humbled himself to the point of dying in that way. So just from this passage, here's 3 character qualities of Jesus. These are character qualities that we need to becoming more and more like him. We need to be a servant. Jesus came to serve, not to be served. Next, we need to be humble. And then finally, obedient. As we become more and more like Jesus in character, this is what we need to be working on. So if the goal is transformation, how are we transformed? What does that look like? Well, character development, it often happens indirectly. It happens while we're having different experiences, especially experiences that challenge our perspectives and our values. You're having an experience, you're thinking this is about you being served, and then something doesn't go right. Oh, it's not how I thought it was going to go. Maybe I need to rethink that. It also develops while we are working on our knowledge and our skill. See, character is one of those things where we don't just, hey, okay, it's Monday. Monday's my character day, and I'm going to work on my character, right? It's as we're growing in the knowledge and as we're growing in the skill, as we feel a little bit of pressure on the inside, maybe we say something, we're like, oh, wow, I didn't know I knew that word. I didn't know I had that thought. Oh, now I have something I need to work on. So how are we transformed? Let's talk about the means that God uses to transform his children. First means is discipline. Oh, the D word, discipline. We don't like discipline, do we? Now, there's discipline from two angles. The first angle is like a loving father disciplines their child. Last week, one of the things we said we need to know is that we live in a cause and effect world. If we do certain things, then other things will happen. If we step outside of God's boundaries, if we belong to Him, then He will discipline us because He loves us. So if you belong to Him, if you are His child and you're being disciplined, it's because He loves you. If you're not being disciplined by God, well, that might be a question I'd want to consider and think about. In fact, God's disciplining is like the pruning. You know what? Yeah, that's no good. We need to take that one off. Yeah, let's prune this one off. This whole thing, this is going in a direction it shouldn't be going. He disciplines us because He loves us. That's one type of discipline. The other type of discipline is the discipline that we do to ourselves. It's like when you're training for something. If you're training for an athletic competition, you've got to make your body do certain things it doesn't want to do. Right? Now, we think we can just go on willpower alone. And there are some things that we can do on willpower. When I was getting ready to start my last year of college, my dad and I got this sort of wild hair idea, I guess. We said, okay, it's summertime. I'm about to go into my last year of college. Let's go have a father-son weekend. Why not go climb Half Dome at Yosemite? We lived in Southern California. We drove the 10 hours and spent the night in a hotel and got up at 3 in the morning and started on the trail. And when in my 20s, and my dad had a pretty physical job, he was in good shape. We got up and down in about 15 hours off of sheer willpower. And we paid for it for the next couple weeks. There were all kinds of people that were shooting up past us and back. I think they'd gone up 3 or 4 times in the time it took us to do it once. So we've got to discipline ourselves. We're going to talk more about this next week. The next one is time. It takes time. Grow. 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 I guess it's going to take more time than that, right? I mean, we're that way too. It just takes time to grow. And then the third one is trials. Oh, we don't like this either. Oh, man, we did the D word, discipline, and now we got the T word, trials. We have to go through things that we've got to endure. In my own life, I look back at my life, and when I was a kid, I walked through some medical problems. When I was in my teens, I had a near-death experience. And then as an adult, married couple, we dealt with a season of infertility. But here's the thing. When we're in the middle of the trial, it doesn't always make sense at this moment, and we can't see anything moving forward. But when you turn around and you look back, if you've got the mindset of, what were they? Service, humility, and obedience. As you look back at this path, you can see that God is doing some things in your life, that He's forming some things. He's transforming you. And I know today that I wouldn't be the same person that I am if I hadn't gone through those things. And I certainly don't like it when I go through trials. But I know that that's what God's using to transform me into the person that He wants me to become. So, the next time you face a trial, and may it not be on the way home today, let me encourage you with this. Have the mindset to not just go through it, but grow through it. Ask God, God, what do you want me to take from this trial right now so that I can become the person that you want me to become? So we've got the goal of transformation, we've got the means we've just been talking about, but how do we determine if transformation is occurring? Listen to what Jesus said. A good tree produces good fruit, and a bad tree produces bad fruit. We got to look at the fruit. I told you last week that this is actually not a fruit-bearing vine because in Texas at this time of the year, they're not this big. and they don't have any fruit on them anyway. So I picked a vine that you could actually see. But if this was a grapevine, we could tell it's a grapevine because there were grapes on it, right? You can see the fruit, so you know that there's transformation, that there's growth occurring. In Galatians chapter 5, we see the fruit of the Spirit. Here's a list here. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. As we abide in Christ, as we stay connected to Him, as we are growing, as He's changing us and transforming us, these types of things should be the fruit that's coming out of our lives and the way that we interact with people. So let me ask you a question, just for fun. Which one do you need to work on right now? Here's another dose of truth for you. You're never going to arrive at all these on this side of eternity. Just when you think you've got one under control, there's another one you've got to work on, right? So just in this present moment right now, we see this list. Which one might God be saying, hey, I want you to grow in this right now? Your fruit is not quite where I want it to be. So I'll go first, and then we'll open this mic up. No, we won't do that. But I'll go first. Patience. There's just so many people that block my goals. Am I the only one? You know what I'm talking about, right? But rather than just getting frustrated in the moment, take a deep breath, slow down. Okay, God, this is obviously not what you have planned right now. Help me to be patient. Help me to see this from your perspective. Help me to see what you want me to see. Help me to grow in this moment of frustration when all I really want to do is get through this to that next thing. So that's the fruit that I need to work on. How about you? What fruit do you need to work on? I want to invite you to just write something down there in your notes. We won't open the mic. Although that would be fun, wouldn't it? Well, we got to look at the fruit. Here at Hope Church, we say it this way. We say that spiritual transformation is demonstrated in the ways that we do these four things, these four big categories. The way that we relate to others, the way that we team together, the way that we live life, and the way that we share the gospel. As we are growing in Jesus, we should be seeing change and fruit demonstrated in these areas. So you've got them on the back of your note sheet. You've got several verses. I just want to talk about the first four. If you've been around Hope for a while, you know these are the first four of the heart attitudes. This is the way that we relate to one another. Put the goals and interests of others above my own. Rather than approaching life from the angle of what can I get from this person, we approach it from the angle of there's at least one other person in this world other than me, right? And I need to consider them. I need to consider their goals and their interests. And is there a way that I can be a real help to them? This is really an explanation of the biblical definition of love. This is how we love one another. Second one, live an honest and open life. Rather than going through life trying to cover up all of our imperfections. By the way, nobody's perfect, right? Now, we know that we're not perfect, but we think we're fooling everyone else. They already know. So rather than covering it up, we are appropriately honest with other people. And that word appropriate is there for a reason. We're appropriately honest. So I don't know what kind of week you had this last week. You may have had the best week in your entire life, or you may have had a very difficult, hard week. I want to give you permission when we leave this room in just a few minutes and somebody asks you the question, how are you? We have a choice to make. If you had a really hard week, you can say, life's never been better. Or if you don't really know the person, you can say, I had a hard week. You don't have to get into all the gory details about it. But if you do know the person, if they're a close friend, you might share how it was difficult. You might ask them to be praying for you. So we are appropriately open and honest. Give and receive scriptural correction. Rather than making our growth nobody's business than our own, we're appropriately open to giving and receiving input. We're all easily deceived by sin. Here's another thing that you need to know. And one of the things you're going to see is that these three of know, be, and do, they're kind of fluid. Another thing you need to know, you have a blind spot, at least one. And here's the thing with blind spots. You don't see them, right? Have you ever had the frustrating conversation with someone, you love them, you're trying to help them, and you say, I just don't see it? Well, duh, it's your blind spot. You can't see it, right? You can't see your own blind spot. So what we acknowledge here is that we all have a blind spot and we all have a whistle. I mean, if you were about to step off of the curb and be hit by a bus, would you want to know? I mean, another near-death experience that I had, I was in India. For some reason, they drive on the wrong side of the road there. Okay? And we're getting ready to cross the street, and I'm looking the way that I normally look. And I'm getting ready to step off the curb, and somebody grabs me and pulls me back, just as a bus went by. We've all got a blind spot. We've all got a whistle. We need to help each other appropriately with our blind spots. And then clear up relationships. Rather than walk away from conflict, rather than run from conflict, we do our best to actually clear it up with the person. We don't talk about other people behind their back. We don't try to build coalitions against people. If there's a problem, we talk about it. There's also a difference between giving forgiveness and a relationship going back to the way that it was. Sometimes we're hurt and we're damaged by people, and we can forgive them for their offense against us, but that doesn't mean we have to go back to the way things were because they permanently messed some things up. This is not something we just talk about as a church. We actually do this. And coming up on April 14th, you're going to get a chance to witness this. We're going to have a Lord's Supper. One of the things we do as a church before the Lord's Supper is we actually take some time. We ask God to show us, are we right in our relation with Him, the vertical relationship? And then we ask Him to show us if there's anything we need to clear up with other people. And we take some time, and people get up and they tap people on the shoulder and they go out into the hallway and they ask for forgiveness, and then we come back in with right relationships and we take the Lord's Supper together. So this is just one of the 4 elements here. This is how transformation is demonstrated in our lives. In fact, if you're new around Hope and you're saying, "Hey, man, I've got some gifts. I want to get into leadership. How can I lead in this church?" I've just given you the scorecard right here. If you've wanted to lead and you've been told no, you can't lead, this is the scorecard. We've got to see transformation. We've got to see fruit. Nobody's perfect, but these are the things that we're looking for, that our life is characterized by these things. So again, which one of these is God saying, I want you to work on that? Maybe it's in the way that you relate to others, the way you team together, the way that you are living your life, or as you think about sharing the gospel. See, when it comes to transformation and the fruit, the only way that we're going to bear fruit is if we stay connected to the vine. This branch, we're going to see how crispy it gets for next week. no fruit will ever come from this branch. Why? It's not connected to the vine anymore. But when we're connected to the vine, we find the source of life and nutrients and meaning and purpose. Everything that we're looking for, we find it as we're connected. And it's by being connected and by abiding in Jesus, we can bear the fruit that He intends for us to bear as His followers. So I want to invite you, what kind of fruit do you need to bear? Is there a moldy grape on your branch? You need a little more water? Do you need a little more sunlight? What do you need so that you can bear the fruit that He intends for you to bear, so that you can join Him in the work that He intends for you to do? Would you bow with me in prayer? Lord Jesus, we acknowledge once again that apart from You, we can do nothing. You are the one who made it possible for us to have the new life. You are the one in whom we find the power and the strength and the peace and the purpose, all that we're looking for. I pray, Father, that You would show us what You want us to see this morning. As we talk about fruit, how can we bear fruit? Do we need to first get connected to the vine by beginning a relationship with You through Jesus? Do we need to discipline ourselves, or do we need to see the discipline that You're doing in our lives as You loving us? And there are some things that need to be pruned out of our life so that we can bear fruit. Whatever it is, I pray, Father, that You would show us what our next step is, and again, give us the courage to take that step. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen.